Welcome back. Start of the new year. Of course, we're back in court. This is going to be a short week because we were off for Dr. Martin Luther King Day yesterday, and then on Friday we're not going to have any judges because they're going to a bar convention. I guess it's in Hilton Head or somewhere. But anyway, we've only got Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And we've got court going on in Georgetown and in Horry. So a lot going on, but it's going to be condensed into 3 days. These are some of the cases that took place last week, and we were in court in Horry. And then I'll fill you in on one that has already taken place in Georgetown this week. But last week in Horry, Tyrese Lighty, he was involved in the Allen's food basket situation where several people were shot and killed. Obviously, Mr. Lighty had been shot himself and left blood in Allen's food basket, but then he had turned state's evidence and worked against 3 or 4 co-defendants. The jury cut those co-defendants loose on the murder charges. One's last name was Hunter, one's last name was Fry, and I can't remember the other one's last name, but those guys were found not guilty. Lighty had already pled guilty and came in to get his sentence, so he did help, and the judge took that into consideration. We had entered into an agreement to, I think it was between 10 years and 30 years, and the judge gave him 15 years on manslaughter. So Tyrese Lighty, 24 years old, convicted of killing Darius Hemingway and Antonio Woods, pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter and got 15 years. In another case, this was a plea last week. Travis Richard Gamble, 34. Gamble is from Georgetown. He came into court and pled guilty, received a sentence of 12 years, and that was for possession with intent to distribute methamphetamine, also burglary and an assault case. So he got 12 years. And that is, should be going off at about 85%. So he'll have to serve about 10 years before he's eligible for parole on Travis Gamble. A young man by the name of Delnor Tilton, 23, of Loris. He is the last defendant in this grinder case. There was several people that were involved in robbing people. They would go up on an app, set up a date. When the person would come for the date, bad guys would come out and rob them. Mazar Studevant, 21, of Myrtle Beach, was convicted of 2 counts of armed robbery back in December. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. There was one guy that didn't show up for court, and his name was Delmore Tilton. He ran. He was picked up in Utah and extradited back, and when he was sentenced on Thursday of last week to 12 years. The difference between 10 and 12 years, I don't know exactly what all went into that for the judge, but sometimes it'll deal with prior record. It may have, I doubt it, but it may have dealt with his fleeing from trial. But either way, he got 12 years. His co-defendant got 10 years, and that case is over. There was one other case I've just heard about. It pled guilty in Georgetown. It's a case that had quite a bit of media attention, but her name is Irene Clodfelder. She was charged. So what happened is her husband went missing a few years ago, and the family was looking for him. Ms. Clodfelder was telling them, you know, he has moved to Florida, told different people different things. In reality, Hubert Clodfelder was encased underneath the porch of their place that they shared together in off Arrowhead Road at Myrtle Beach Travel Park, one of the permanent units. She was tried on her Horry County charges, and the judge stopped the case before it went to the jury, and had a directed verdict, which turned her loose in Horry. She pled guilty to the charges in Georgetown County, which were obstruction of justice and the lying to the police, and she received 10 years suspended to 2 years in prison, followed by probation. The underlying charge was really bad. Her 80-some-year-old husband had been killed and buried under the porch. But what she was looking at, you couldn't tell where Hubert had been killed because he'd been missing for a while, and they had property together in Horry and in Georgetown and in North Carolina. So you really couldn't tell what jurisdiction the killing had occurred in. So she was charged with obstruction of justice for lying. She was also charged with accessory after the fact in Horry County. That's the one that the judge directed a verdict on, and she pled to the lying to the police officer and got 10 years suspended to 2 years 10 years suspended to 2 years in prison, followed by probation. So we're into Tuesday. It'll be 2 condensed weeks, you know, for Horry and Georgetown, but already we're starting to see some of those cases roll in. So we will get back together next week, and I'll tell you about some of the other pleas or trials of significance coming out of Horry and Georgetown.